Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our fourth Holiday Series webinar. Today, we are honored to have Rick Kenney, the Head of Consumer Insights from Demandware, joining us. Demandware provides cloud-based e-commerce platform and related services for retailers and brands around the world. Rick is a thought leader on data-driven digital e-commerce trends. He pioneered Demandware's benchmarking practice, which identifies growth opportunities for clients. Rick previously worked in email marketing, driving contact strategies for a number of Fortune 100 clients. Rick is going to share his insights on recent mobile commerce trends, Cyber Week, and the latest holiday results. With that, I'll turn the call over to Rick, and please refer to the slides attached as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone out there. We get to talk about the holiday shopping season a little bit here. It's been a really interesting one so far. We've picked out a couple of things that we think would be really interesting, and are going to dive into those. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to move some slides around. We won't beat you with too many slides. We do have some good context that we can share about the stories and the data that supports those stories that we're seeing across the Christmas/holiday shopping season. So first, one of the points I'd like to make is why is what we're actually looking through, why is it credible? One of the great assets that I get to work with at Demandware is we look across over 1,300 digital commerce sites. Across those sites, we see almost 300 million shoppers. What's really interesting about that is these are real, true shopping stories. This is not a survey of what shopping might have, what a shopper might do, but rather we can find the real trends, the change of pace, and also what shoppers are actually doing. So we look across the Commerce Cloud, we see a lot of shoppers, and across that we can find some really interesting things. Now today in particular, we're gonna hone in on the peak shopping season. I want to set some context of when that period is. Essentially, we're looking at the first 3 weeks of the season, which includes going through last Monday as well. So we start off on the Tuesday prior to American Thanksgiving and run right through the Monday that just passed, the last Monday. You'll notice, of course, those dates are a little bit different because the calendar shifts. And one thing to consider as well is that this year, because there's the extra day between American Thanksgiving and Christmas, the numbers that we present here are actually a little bit understated. We'll probably see about a 3-point incremental gain when we look back at the end of the year. So the numbers might be a little understated, but certainly directionally accurate and give a good flavor of what the shopping season looks like. So there are 3 pieces that are really shopper focused that I want to share today. One, the season has shifted. You heard a lot about that at the beginning of the year. Well, some further shifts have happened too that we'll share as we go through. 2, and anyone who's been subject to one of my talks finds that one takeaway I like to give to everyone is it's time to start measuring the business differently. Those old metrics that may have worked a number of years ago, they don't fit. They're not representing the business the right way these days. I'll beat up on things like conversion rate in a couple of slides, and I'll share some holiday shopping trends, but also what we've seen in the past couple of years of data worth as well. And then finally, I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but breaking news, mobile's a big deal, and especially this shopping season, we've seen that acceleration of mobile starting to put some distance between some other devices. I'll share a number of facts and nuggets around mobile as we get into this. Let's start with the shifting season. One of the big storylines is right out of the gate at the beginning of this shopping season, we saw some really big days. Typically in digital commerce, the big day was Cyber Monday. Well, this year it shifted, and I look at the last 3 years of let's look at each week, the first week of each season, and you'll see a couple things happening. One is that the 2 big days, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, are actually getting bigger in terms of that first big week. So it becomes really these appointment type shopping days, right? Black Friday now holds 23% of that first week's share. Cyber Monday holds 27%. That's 50% of the first week's orders just on those 2 days. But inside of that, what's really interesting is that Cyber Monday as the single peak has certainly fallen down in terms of how much larger it is compared to the other days. So last year, for instance, in 2014, Cyber Monday was 30% larger than Black Friday. This year, as digital swept through retail, We saw Black Friday rose, and now it's only 17% behind Cyber Monday. So some really interesting things happen with the shopper. Is that Black Friday typically was reserved for getting in store, fighting crowds, and traffic in parking lots across malls. But I think we saw a few anecdotes this year. Some big brands saying, things like Opt Outside, closing stores on Black Friday, and I think everyone held their breath of, what does that really mean for retail? Well, I think what it is meaning for retail on the whole is that folks are starting to shift some of that in-store traffic and starting to do some of that online as well on Friday in particular. So that big shopping day of Friday, which typically was reserved for old brick and mortar retail, is now being shared across both digital and brick and mortar. And then Cyber Monday has certainly continued its pace as a big digital commerce shopping day, but now we have those 2 days that look like two very tall peaks throughout the shopping season. And so overall, if we step back and we look at what's happened so far, and again in the period that ends roughly at the end of the day last Monday, and by the way, all the data we have is localized, so it's true shopping days. It doesn't cross the hour time frame. So whether it's U.S., U.K., or time zones within the U.S., it'll be per that particular local regions or local time zoned into the appropriately to that shopper. So fashion, I want to call out fashion, which I'd put active, luxury, and general apparel into that bucket overall. Fashion sales are up 35% globally, and that's by a number of orders thus far. But one thing that is really interesting is that the actual shopping basket, which is the omni-channel utility, it's the thing that now, because folks are using phones more often, when they create a basket, they're really creating their wish list. They can buy from that basket whether they want to right that moment. They can save it until later that weekend. Certainly if it's a Saturday start of a basket, they might actually buy on Monday. But also they can go in store with it. And that's what makes it that omni-channel utility, is it goes everywhere with the shopper. So whether it is sharing that with a store associate or just using it to sell shop, you're using that basket in a very different way. It's not just a digital commerce basket. It is an omni-channel utility. Now, year over year, those baskets are way up. So we're seeing 41% increase in baskets year over year. That's a really big number, and something we continue to see as a real utility for that shopper. It's their wish list, and now it goes everywhere with them because they're using mobile more and more. We'll come back to mobile a couple of times during this session too. And so I talked about metric change. And I want to set up a little bit of a story here about conversion rate. But first, what I'm showing here is there are 3 sets of bars we're looking at. Each one represents year-over-year growth for a particular week, starting with Cyber Week, going to post-Cyber Week, and then the pre-Christmas week itself. And you'll see these metrics just jump all over the place. And 2 of them, in particular, that in each set that you look at, that jump around a lot. One is visits. So you see visits just absolutely huge year over year during Cyber Week. And then the other is conversion rate. Look at conversion rate, which is that purple one. Hopefully the screen rasterization isn't too bad, but the purple one is the 4th bar in each section. Conversion rate is just leaping. First it's up, then it's down, then it's kind of midway point. There's certainly a direct correlation between visits and conversion rate. When you see that real big number of visits happening, you're going to see conversion rates shift and change. The real important things that folks want to be looking at are things like the orange bars, right? The actual change in orders year over year, which has been really strong. And then also the baskets. Baskets have a great indicator for not just digital commerce growth, but also that it is, like I mentioned in the previous content here, it is omni-channel. It is something someone can take in store. So if you're creating baskets, that's short of actually placing an order, that's the best thing you can do. And in some cases, a basket might be the foray into a store for some of those shoppers. So I set this slide up as shoppers are changing, and the metrics that we measure our business with are very different. And because those things are moving around so much, you see those 2 bars, right, the 2 bookends, if you will, of change in visits and change in conversion rate, really just leaping left and right. I think what that's telling us, and this is looking at apparel only, by the way, what that's telling us is we've got to start looking at things a little bit differently. And so I want to beat up on conversion rate a little bit. And I like to say to folks that are relying on conversion rate as the bellwether metric, the way that you measure performance of your business, that's an antiquated way to look at your business, and it's going to lead to some inaccuracy as well. And I'll tell a quick story here. And for those of us who've been with e-commerce for a while, you'll remember that when we kind of first were figuring out how we're going to measure our business way back when, conversion rate became a kind of standard and simple metric to use, because it was, let's tally up all the visits and all the orders, put orders over visits, and the conversion rate. And that term was a familiar term to folks too. We knew it from in-store as well. But the challenge and the difference was when we went to the board of directors, the president said, all right, so I want to share how the performance of e-commerce is going. And we said, we're going to use conversion rate. Folks nodded their head up and down. And we said, ballpark in the industry is between 2 and 3% at the time. They said, hold on, 2 to 3%. In store we're seeing 15, maybe 20, 25%. I said, no, 2 to 3% industry standard in terms of e-commerce. This is back in the, we call it the early 2000s even. We said, well, what we want to focus on too is we're going to improve that conversion rate. So we started focusing our entire program on conversion rate optimization and improving conversion rate. So we did a lot of really good things. We started adding in different things like recommendations, reviews. We did a lot of work on user experience, and it may have actually tipped conversion rate up. And in some cases, those folks that were at the controls, whether it be director or VP of e-commerce, their bonus was actually attached to that conversion rate. So they wanted to make sure they increased conversion rate. But then, of course, we know down the road, in the mid-2000s, 2007, 2008, is when we really started to see shoppers start to use more than just the computer, right? It wasn't just logging on to a desktop computer. It was using your laptop and your phone, and then when tablets came around, starting to use that to shop as well. So we saw shoppers going back and forth between these different devices, and they weren't just using one device. They were using multiple devices. And the challenge from a measurement perspective is that we were now taking that visit, right, and we're increasing it. We saw this visit inflation happening, and of course, when that happens, conversion rate, there's downward pressure on conversion rate. So these same board of directors and folks would start to panic, saying, hey, I thought we were going to increase conversion rate. Now it's going down. Is this deteriorating the actual business? And the answer is certainly no, but I think what we learned through that is that by framing the entire performance of the business around visits just didn't work. Visit inflation was happening, and because of that, we were looking at the business in a wrong way. It had become antiquated. The shopper had changed, but we hadn't changed measurement. Here's some of the data to back that up, and I'll come back to that point in a moment. So we talk about putting the shopper at the center of the business, because when we start looking at the shopper, what she's actually doing, we're seeing that the visits per shopper are up, and this looks at the past couple of years worth of data on a quarterly basis. Visits per shopper are up 7%. More good news is that baskets per shopper are up 10%. I certainly like, and you'll hear more from me about why the basket's a really important metric to be following. Now, naturally, when all of that happens, you have downward pressure because of those visits and that visit inflation on conversion rate. But the punchline here is when you start looking and putting the shopper at the center of your measurement, you'll see the orders per shopper are up. So orders per shopper up 7%. That's a really good number. So if you want to look at your business in an accurate way, you see orders per shopper up. Certainly it makes sense. Digital commerce is still growing. We've more data on the way to support that. But when you start framing, continue to frame on the old way around visits, and you start thinking of conversion rate, that's not a good way to measure the business. So let's talk more about that cart and certainly why this holiday season, why the cart has been so hot. One of the things I like to beat up on is abandoned shopping cart. My background is in email marketing too, so I spent a lot of years counseling folks and making sure everyone was doing all the right things, or were doing all the right things they could do. And one of those programs you had to, and you still have to be running, is an abandoned shopping cart program. But the problem is folks start to fixate on abandoned shopping cart rate. And just like we looked at conversion rate being, when you fixate just on that, you start to go the wrong way. The same thing happens with abandoned shopping carts, and here's why. Certainly I think I see that way, and why the data puts that out too. Abandoned shopping cart rate is looked at as something that folks want to typically minimize. But on the other side, inside of abandoned shopping cart is the actual creation of a shopping cart, which short of an order is the best thing you can do. So you play that game of would you rather decrease your rate of abandoned shopping cart, or would you rather increase carts? And the answer should always be increase carts, because again, it can go everywhere. That cart can go in store with the shopper, and short of the order is the best thing you can do. And so when we look at the numbers of how that fits out, we see two things that look very different. At the bottom, abandoned cart rate is a boring metric. It's flat. It has a little bit of seasonality attached to it, but generally speaking, by device, they tend to look the same over the course of a long period of time. So abandoned cart rate doesn't really do much for your business. However, when you start looking at the actual increase in carts, what are you actually seeing from baskets per visit? Cart rate is increasing, and especially cart rate is increasing on that phone. And that's a really, really important piece, as we'll see in a couple of slides from now. As you look at early last year, early 2014, cart rate was under 10% on phones. Now we're seeing it actually reach similar to the area that we see for the other devices. That's a really important point. So again, if you give me a choice of what would I rather, create a cart or trying to decrease my abandoned shopping cart rate, the answer is pretty easy. I want to create that cart. That's how I get paid. That's how I ultimately get that order in. So in terms of this holiday season, this shopping season, carts are proving to be that e-commerce and store utility. They're going everywhere that a shopper goes. So what I pulled here is some data that is just for phones. So we're looking at carts just on phones. So year on year, in apparel, across a large group of same-site sales that we look at, add to cart rate is up 25%, 24.8%, 25% up year over year. That's huge on phones. And what that's showing is that shoppers are selecting the phones not just to visit, but actually to use as that wish list. They're using it to start to buy as well. We'll see those numbers in a couple of moments as well. So really good news. If they're going to use that phone more and more, hopefully they get farther down that traditional funnel as well, certainly to purchase, but definitely to cart, and they're doing that. Add to cart rate up 25%. So when you combine that increase in cart rate with the raw increase in visits, this year we're seeing double the number of carts created on phones. That's a huge number, and it's interesting to think about this too, because e-commerce is not a brand new trend, right? The folks on this phone, we've probably all been around this for a number of years. In some cases, folks have been doing this for 20 years. And you tend to think when you do something for 20 years, you reach some points of maturity. Well, with phones, it happens to be a dramatic change. If they haven't reached that maturity yet, they're seeing gigantic year-over-year gains. This is a really good sign for the kind of the next generation, next wave of commerce. And so let's talk about that mobile as well. Let's talk about what we're seeing for a little bit more about phones. And when I say mobile, it generally means phones. You won't hear me say smartphone, because at this point they've all gone smart, right? So when you say smartphone, you tend to sound a little bit antiquated in how you're saying it. So please start using mobile phone, or phone. That's what we tend to think is the actual mobile device, because as we'll talk about in a moment, tablets are not really mobile, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So the data we have here has 119% listed on it. 119% represents of the growth year over year in visits. Phones are driving 119%, which certainly doesn't make sense. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because it's actually, we're seeing tablet and computer decrease over the course of the year. Fewer visits from tablet and computer over the course of the year. So are phones driving growth? Absolutely. They're driving all of the growth in visits, all of the growth in baskets, and then some in both those cases. And more good news, they're driving over half of the growth in orders. And that's actually been going up steadily over the past couple of quarters. The previous quarter to this, this is looking at Q3 data, the previous quarter was Q2, and that was something like 47%. So we're seeing even more of that share of order growth coming from phones. Let's get into the holiday shopping period. I want to pull out one day globally and look at just some of the traffic shares here. And the device on the far right is a phone. On Black Friday, we saw 46% of global shopping share coming from phones. 26% of the orders as well. So for those who have not yet caught up to say that I'm mobile first, they're the folks who need to realize that for shopping share, mobile is first. And it's time to make sure that your strategy is designed to be mobile first. I know we've all heard that term for over a couple of years now. Well, the fact is now it's true in terms of the reality of the action, the activity of the actual shopper. I talked about also how phones don't appear to have reached maturity yet either. And one of the points that we can point to is that year over year, the share of orders on phones is up 48%, and the share of traffic on phones is up 41%. Those are really, really big numbers. I'm going to come back to tablets in a moment, but it's worth calling out that globally, tablets only held 11% of traffic on Black Friday. And if you look back about a year or so ago, we thought that tablets were going to be the shopping device. Well, that's changed. We'll get into that in a moment. Overall, for the entire shopping season thus far, what have we seen? We were seeing a very, very tight race actually between phone and computer for the race for most traffic share. So right now it's basically neck and neck. 45% go to computer, 44% go to phones. That tablet has a small bit of share right in the middle. What's interesting about that is that year over year that traffic is up 33%, but the traffic share is up 33%, but the order growth is up even bigger, up 52%. So we're seeing some really good things because again, if those shoppers are going to use that device, we hope they start buying. They are. They're definitely buying on phones, which is great to see. Make one last mobile point here. We're winding down the content. We'll certainly be open to some questions after this. But I want to talk about tablets. Because tablets, if you go back a couple of years, we looked at that device and, wow, look at this. It's a really great experience. It's a bigger screen than a phone. And I don't need to actually open up my laptop to go shop. I'm going to use this tablet device. And we all said, oh, great. And we even kind of confused it at the time. We said, well, tablet's kind of mobile. So some folks would include tablets in their mobile reports. And that got really confusing. Different people saying different things are mobile, different things aren't mobile. Well, here's what we're seeing overall. And I'm going to say that let's stop saying tablets are mobile. They are not a mobile device. In fact, they actually act a lot more like a laptop computer than they do like a phone. And here are a couple things we'll dig into. So from a numbers perspective, device-only buyers. The folks who buy only on phones over the past couple of quarters have passed the number of folks who buy just on tablets. We also see the traffic share. It is not even a race anymore. Phones are far beyond tablets. 4 times the share goes through phone. And what's happened year over year is the tablets are falling. In fact, all the key metrics for tablets are down. Tablet share of traffic peaked at around 15% early 2014. It's down to 11%. There have been days, especially in the US, there have been days where tablet share of traffic has been under 9%. So we're seeing signs of maturity, and actually the tablet is being crowded out as a shopping device. So I'll mention a couple. Let me say with the tablet piece as well, because I want to make a couple of points that I have in some other resources that I won't share here. One of the reasons we talk about for time on site is that we're seeing a actually decrease in the length and duration of a visit. And one of those reasons comes down to where the tablet goes and where the phone goes. And the phones, as we know, they go everywhere with us. They go to every single room of the house. That's your family room, your kitchen, your living room, your bedroom, even your bathroom, your den, whatever place. It's always with you. And because of that, you're going to take it out and put it away at any moment. Your tablet is somewhat anchored. Your tablet might live generally in the family room. You might throw it in your work bag too now and then. You might use it at work. But the phone has a very different experience, a very different usage pattern, because when you go outside of the house in particular, if you're waiting for a train, you take out your phone and you start shopping. Or better put, you take out your phone, you check your email, you get a promotional email, you click through, and then you start shopping. A tablet doesn't act like that. And you can insert any location, whether it be waiting for a train, waiting to pick up a child at school, waiting in line somewhere. you don't just take that tablet out wherever it goes. So tablets are being crowded out because they don't really have that right place anymore. Phones have the right place. The phone place is everywhere. The tablet place happens to be very similar to the profile where the laptop is. You'd have that laptop in the family room, in the TV room. You might not always bring it up to the bedroom, but that's what you have a phone for. So why are tablets being crowded out? And we're seeing that it is absolutely the case they're being crowded out is because they don't have that place. They are not the primary device, and they're not the secondary device. They're actually becoming a third screen in that point, and that tablet share of both traffic and orders fits that as well. All right, so let's wrap on what we're going to see. So we still have a little bit of share of the season to come. As we look forward, about 15% of the season's orders are still expected. One of the big storylines, and rightfully so, in North America has been weather. Weather's been challenging for those that sell outerwear and heavy knits. It's been reported through the Fung Business Intelligence Center as well. And the numbers that we saw earlier, could those have been even higher? Could the weather have been different? It certainly wasn't, but if you didn't have all these East Coast 50, 60 degree days, there could have certainly been some different sales and different order patterns for some of those heavier outerwear type purchases. The other piece that we want to get into is, I'll just mention it here, the biggest mobile days of the year have yet to come. The 2 days last year, they're the largest for mobile share. One was Christmas Day. We're expecting this year that number might get to 55% globally. The second is Boxing Day, or for folks, I'm sorry, the typo there, 26th, the December 26th. Boxing Day may actually reach higher than Christmas Day. I'm putting both at 55% of global traffic share. Those numbers might be even a tad higher. So we're going to see that certainly happening. I know we have some Q&A time. I'm sure we'll get into this, but 2016 is coming. The two trends that we talked about here are certainly going to happen. One is mobile will continue its rise. Tablets on the side will continue to be crowded out. Those who aren't paying attention to that, or who are stubborn to not create a best-in-class mobile experience, are those that will lose shoppers. I heard a stat the other day that something to the effect of 70% of all your first-time shoppers will experience you on their phones. That means if you have that old shrunken screen or even that boring accordion-style experience, that's not going to be a good representation of the brand. And second, I think what we need to look into in 2016, what we started to hear and to see in 2015, is the convergence of what's happening in marketing and in commerce. Some use the term distributed commerce. It's bringing that commerce experience into the marketing channels. We've seen it with things like buyable pins from Pinterest. Twitter has some work done on that point too, the actual buy now on Twitter. It's just a matter of time until we start seeing other major marketing channels, and think about email marketing, major marketing channels like email marketing that actually carry commerce inside of those. How long is it until we see an actual buy button inside of Gmail? It's not going to be long. So when you think about what's coming in 2016, more of the same in terms of mobile is going to be a really big deal, but also a continued effort on marketing's behalf of carrying some more of that commerce forward. So key takeaways, I think we've hit these pretty hard. Please do think about that shopper first, even when designing your metrics. Orders per shopper, basket rate are really important ones. Conversion rate and abandoned shopping cart just are not as relevant as they used to be. Shoppers are mobile. Be shopper first by being mobile first. And finally, be careful about the spontaneity, but also the interruption of a shopper, is that they're going to create a whole lot more visits. They're going to spend less time on site. So whatever you can do to maximize that investment, making it a really streamlined experience, and this goes right into the trend of next year of having marketing carry more of that commerce experience, you'll start to see some really good things happen. So those that can be mobile first, those that measure their business well, and those that can streamline that shopping experience are the ones who will win in the coming years. There are a number of assets that I'm happy to point to. We do a wrap-up report that'll be out in the first or second week of January, carrying what happened across the shopping season. There's also a really cool resource available to you called the Demandware Shopping Index. We publish that each quarter. It's at the same page every time. You can look at the key metrics that are happening in the business, both by country and by vertical. So that's a free asset for those that can dig into it. And with that, I'll pause for Q&A and open it up to questions.
Great. So if anyone has any questions, now's a great time to ask them. I've got a few that I'm going to throw out to Rick. So if you think about the cadence of the holiday shopping season this year, certainly some of it could have been different than expectations due to weather, but can you just talk about what you guys saw and how it differed versus what you expected?
Yeah, I think that maybe the biggest surprise for anyone is how big that first week was, and there are a couple of reasons for it, right? I think we were at and we saw the inflection point this year that digital swept through retail, and especially with that first week, starting, pick your day of when it starts, whether it's the Tuesday before American Thanksgiving, the Wednesday, or even Black Friday itself, is that digital saw bigger gains than they had ever seen before in a year-over-year period. A lot of that had to do with the shopper realizing that they had that shopping device wherever they happened to be, that the phone became ubiquitous and that it is connected to you. You could be shopping on your terms. We successfully have realized, both from a shopper perspective and a retailer perspective, that the friction in shopping is nearly gone completely in a digital form, right? So one way we see that is the rise of mobile. So folks now realize that they can shop wherever and whenever they want on their terms, which is funny. It's a similar analogy to 15 or 20 years ago in commerce, when we said, hey, even if I'm not right next to a store, I can shop on my computer. Well, it's the same thing. It just means that now you're on your phone. You can shop in your backyard. You can shop at a relative's home, on the train, wherever you happen to be. So I think that led to a gigantic first week overall. I think weather certainly played a role in the second and third week of the season, especially in apparel sales overall. There could have been, at least there might have been some governors in place because of the weather, that growth could have been even bigger in the week 2 and week 3 of holiday. We'll see what week 4, which is really right now leading up to Christmas, looks like.
And then, do you think that when you look at the data, do you see more or less abandonment between desktop and mobile?
Oh, good question. So the rates are actually somewhat similar in terms of abandonment rate. I expect those to shift slightly because we're starting to see that growth of carts on phones, and I expect that part of the usage of that phone is that folks are going in store. And so we in digital commerce might read that to be that's abandoned shopping cart on a phone, when in fact they went and actually bought in store. So it wasn't actually an abandonment event from the shopper perspective, but it is from the metrics and those who are reporting on it. So what we're seeing is that the cart rate is increasing on phone. The conversion rate on phone itself is slightly below what the other devices are right now. Folks certainly have seen that in their reporting over time. And because of that, we're going to see an abandonment rate that is generally higher on a phone, but probably not completely accurate because of that at this point.
Okay, and then if we think about the biggest surprise of the holiday season, I mean, mobile has certainly been, I think, on the tip of everyone's tongue. But if you look back, and obviously we still have a few more days, but and I think, and the other thing is, if I go back and I think, I mean, it wasn't even that long ago. I mean, every retailer, I think, was rolling out tablets to every sales associate. Yep. Can you talk about, and this idea of, kind of, you almost had this, like, I keep on hearing Cyber 6 or Cyber Week. And for us, really, the holiday season almost started with, Singles Day. Just, there's been a lot. I mean, it's been I feel like the holiday season has been very long, and I wonder if, thank goodness for Star Wars, I wonder how the consumer, right, for us, it's kind of like holiday all year long, but I wonder how the consumer is viewing it, and, if you have this kind of like last minute rush, maybe you can kind of just go through your thoughts.
Yeah, you hit a lot of good themes there. You talk about surprises and a changing retail climate. So one of those factors is the in-store experience. And I think what one of the things that starts to happen is that, yes, we're seeing really good things happen inside a store, that retailers have realized that they need to empower that associate. I think that's in a better place this year than it was last year, and you see more associates actually carrying something like an iPad mini. In some cases, they might actually be line busting with an iPod Touch at this point as well. But not to be lost in all this is the best technology is the one that walks in and out of the door every moment, which is the shopper's personal device. That's what folks have to take advantage of in a better way. We're still uncomfortable generally in the industry with, can I actually let my shopper self-checkout? Well, this time next year, I think we'll be much less uncomfortable, much more comfortable with it this time next year, because I think we'll start to see that really start to happen, that the shopper can actually do more self-checkout. We'll see some different security and procedural initiatives in the store to start addressing some of that as well, because that shopper's coming in knowing exactly what they want. They're carrying it in their device, in their personal phone, and they're seeing whether the card is something they want to remember so they can go in store and find it, or they want to share with the associate saying, I'm looking for this, but I didn't see it, or I want to know if this is, insert what you're hearing associate from returns, and are folks actually comfortable and excited about this product. So I think that will shift this year to empowering the associate, which I think we're starting to check that box, to empowering the actual shopper to be able to do more in store, like self-checkout. The other surprise, and I think it's a pretty dramatic one, is how quickly this year just completely digital swept retail, that Black Friday became a much bigger digital day than I think folks even expected getting out there. And that's on the canvas of this year had a really big Cyber Monday, but that those two peaks are actually very similar. And one of the reasons they're actually becoming these peaks is we're seeing over the course of that entire first week a whole bunch of visits, but the consumer's gotten smart about this. They're actually waiting to see when those two big deal days will be. So even if you're browsing and you're adding to cart on a Wednesday or on Thanksgiving Day, you're very likely to wait until Friday to say, well, let me see what happens on Friday. The product will still be in my cart then. There might be a bigger deal and a discount waiting for me on Friday. Same thing for Monday. And Monday was interesting too, because as we said, it's a big day. One of the numbers I didn't share was free shipping. Free shipping was on Cyber Monday was the standard. 88% of digital commerce orders on Monday shipped for free. So everyone's getting free shipping. Whether that's something they have to wait for or not is up to the shopper and up to the retailer. But what we're absolutely seeing is that over the course of that period of time, call it the Cyber 6, from Wednesday all the way through Cyber Monday, you're seeing one big shopping day. And those 2 points where folks actually decide it's time to buy or not. And those are all happening more and more on phone with that traffic and order share way up. And also it's starting to impact some of the stores in terms of the shoppers don't need to go in the store to actually make that purchase, and they don't worry about things like shipping. And one of the reasons you go in stores to avoid shipping costs, they're getting orders shipped for free anyhow.
I mean, 88% is like 100%, right? I mean, that's almost, that's a very high number. So yeah, it's interesting. All right. So while we were chatting, we had quite a few questions come in on the line. So I'll start at the bottom and work my way to the top. Is the 35% growth of orders from brand sites seems very high given the reported growth in e-com of 10% plus?
Yeah. So in terms of the growth, it's been a big holiday season. As we've continued to measure growth and we compare, I'll compare a couple of things in what we've seen. So we measure by the Demandware Shopping Index. So each quarter, the last quarter we have, and I don't have it handy, but I'll bring it up in a second. The last quarter we had was Q3. That value was 25%. So that 35% apparel growth is indexing over what we saw the previous quarter. So I think it has been somewhat of a surprise overall that it would be this strong. We predicted when I looked at some of the set that we look at, we were expecting order growth overall to be around 31%. So we've seen that increase a little bit higher than expected. That's with a really strong start. And again, these numbers we expect to be a tad bit higher thanks to the extra day that comes in. But absolutely for apparel, it has been an over-index on what we've seen in the previous quarters so far.
Okay, another question. Is e-gifting a common way to send gifts by Christmas for last-minute shoppers? How have retailers made e-gifting easier for shoppers this season?
Good question. I'll bring out one data point we found last year. We haven't looked at it this year because the time hasn't come yet for it. But what's really interesting is that the biggest day of the year for online gift card redemption is actually December 26th. So whether that be folks who received Christmas presents and used the day after, or folks actually from Boxing Day globally using gift cards, and that's redemption. That's not purchase. That's actually redemption. The rate of gift card redemption spikes that day after Christmas on December 26th. I haven't heard too much about what we've seen for actually using e-gifting this year. There's some interesting technologies this year that weren't as in vogue last year. There are a number of different trends that we've seen with some of the subscription service as well that may have started to take some bites out of that e-gifting as well, because they're actually showing gifts through subscriptions. I don't have too much beyond what we know from the redemption rates that look high after the holiday season.
Okay, and then another question. Regarding your observations about conversion rate and cart abandonment, is there a difference between e-commerce using a store's own mobile app versus using a third-party platform such as Amazon? What are the future trends in consumer behaviors and metrics in third-party platforms?
Sure. I want to pick up the kind of Amazon/marketplace against what we see from individual brands, because there is quite a difference in one way. Is that when you look at a player like Amazon, and certainly we've seen the growth, and you've seen their both stock price and revenue increase quite dramatically. From what I've heard, they're having a good holiday season as well. One of the benefits they have of being in that marketplace position is that they're able to have a really great recognition rate across any device. So again, many of us are probably already Amazon shoppers, is you are logged in, registered, known, recognized, all those terms. You are it for both phone and computer, and if you're also shopping on a tablet, you're recognized there too. And advantageously, what that allows that analyst view at Amazon to look at is you can actually discern more clearly that orders per shopper rate, which is the important one to look at, because Amazon doesn't really care where you're shopping. I don't care if you're on a phone or a computer or tablet. It's the order that matters. And that same mentality needs to continue to permeate through all brands and all retailers as well. Shoppers don't think about visits. They think about shopping, and they don't care what device that's on. So what we're hoping to see, and I think what folks will start to do a lot better, is starting to take the time, do better cross-device tracking, using marketing as an intermediary to do that in some cases, and start to look at not the visit as the center of your performance, but look at the shopper at the center, because those folks will have a much better position to see what's actually happening and to cater and become more relevant to those shoppers and take advantage of all the tried and true kind of database marketing type techniques to identify and reactivate shoppers that may have gone cold on you as well. There was a question there too about mobile apps. There's still today in the consumer's mind, and this is just going on anecdotal data. I don't have the actual values, but I did read the report of the top shopping applications in the U.S. in particular are nearly ubiquitously, they're all retailer type applications, and that also includes marketplace type applications. So there's a dividing line between the brand mobile applications, native apps, and the retailer marketplace apps, that brands have yet to make that full swing forward and create that experience that is valuable enough for the shoppers to download at the rates that they're downloading the other third-party apps, the other native apps for folks like Amazon and other big retailers that are out there.
Okay, so we've got two more questions. There's a whole bunch, but we'll go with two. I think in the excitement of the 88%, there is a few questions around just the clarity of what day was the free shipping of 88%, and if we look at the Cyber 6, I think there's questions over kind of what did the free shipping rates look like over the Cyber 6 period as well.
Oh, good question. I don't have the exact number for the Cyber 6. I may have published it in previous blog posts, so maybe if we can get that contact info, I could certainly find it. The day of the 88% was Cyber Monday, and again, that's a localized Cyber Monday. So that's Cyber Monday for an East Coast shopper or Cyber Monday for a West Coast shopper, as well as UK and other time zones. They'll be out there. So 88% represented Cyber Monday's free shipping.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, and then did you see any acceleration of mobile payment playing into the dramatic growth in digital channels?
It's a good question. It's one I had a sidebar with a colleague last night about it. I don't have any mobile payment data to share. I'm interested if someone does, because I think it's a really interesting topic to dig into, and I'm sorry I don't have any data for that in particular.
Okay, great. All right, so this was fantastic. Thank you for all of the rich data and insights. And Rick, we appreciate you and Demandware with the fantastic deck and supporting us here at the Fung Business Intelligence Center. And everyone, we will have a transcript, we'll have the slides available, and we'll have a detailed note. And thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having Rick and Demandware available for future calls. Thanks so much, Rick, and happy holidays.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks.